I held my passport at the gate, at Pearson, my phone buzzing in my coat pocket, while I scrolled through the boarding announcement one more time, grinning like an idiot, because I'd just spent 11 months of profit from my staging business on this trip for all of us. The text came through right as the agent called my row. My mother's name lit up the screen and I thought, finally, she's asking where to meet at the gate. Instead it said, "You're not coming, Dad wants just family. We gave your seat to your brother's sister-in-law." I read it 3 times, standing there in my wool coat with my carry-on digging into my shoulder, and the words refused to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. I was 31 years old. I owned a company. I had paid 42,000 Canadian dollars for this cruise. The whole thing, every cabin, every excursion in Santorini and Dubrovnik, every bottle of wine my father would drink on that ship. And somehow, in the span of one text message, I had stopped being family. I stepped out of the line, ignoring the woman behind me, sighing loudly about the delay. It wasn't her who answered, it was my brother, 34, smug as ever, laughing into the phone like he was already 3 drinks in at the lounge. "Well, if it isn't the workaholic," he said. "What do you want, Maren? I want to know why I just got a text saying I'm not invited on the trip I paid for." "Dad just wants it to be family this time. Real family. You're always working anyway, you'd probably just be on your laptop the whole cruise." "I booked the suites, Holt. I paid the deposit on Mom and Dad's stateroom. I'm the reason any of you are getting on that boat. And we appreciate it," he said, and I could hear the eye roll in his voice. "But Bree's sister needed the seat more than you did. She just went through a breakup. You'll be fine." "You always are." He hung up before I could say anything else, and I stood there in the terminal with my suitcase and my non-refundable boarding pass, and a kind of cold clarity settling into my chest that I hadn't felt in years. I thought about making a scene, about forcing my way onto that ship just to watch my father's face when I walked into the dining room, but I didn't. I turned around, wheeled my suitcase back through security in the wrong direction, and went home to my condo in North York, where I sat on my kitchen counter and opened my banking app. 3 years earlier, after my father's heart attack, I had bought my parents a house. Not helped them buy it, bought it outright. Cash $740,000 for a 4-bedroom in Markham, close to the hospital where Dad did his cardiac follow-ups. I'd put it in a numbered company I controlled, Larkspur Holdings Inc., for tax reasons my accountant had recommended at the time, and let my parents live in it rent-free. I'd told myself it didn't matter whose name was on the title, as long as they were comfortable. I had never once brought it up at dinner, never once reminded anyone, because that's not what you do for people you love. I thought about that house for a long time that night, the lights of the city blinking through my window, my unused passport sitting on the counter next to a glass of wine I wasn't really drinking. My mother's text was still open on my phone. "Dad wants just family." I kept coming back to those 4 words like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. By morning I had called my real estate agent, Priscilla, a woman I'd worked with for years on staging contracts, and asked her how fast we could list a fully owned property in a seller's market in the GTA. "If it's move-in ready and priced right," she said, 2 weeks, maybe less. You'd have offers in days." I told her to start the paperwork. I had power of attorney over nothing. I didn't need it. The house was mine. It always had been. The listing photos went up 4 days later, while my family was somewhere in the Adriatic posting cruise selfies with the caption "Family First Wong," that my mother had tagged me in out of either spite or cluelessness. I couldn't decide which. The comments under that post were the worst part. Aunts and cousins liking it, nobody asking where I was. I muted the thread and let Priscilla do her work. The offers came fast, just like she said. A young couple from Richmond Hill, both surgeons at the Children's Hospital, offered $760,000 with a flexible closing. I countered nothing. I accepted. Closing was set for 19 days out, which gave my family exactly 5 days back on Canadian soil before the locks would legally no longer be theirs to use. I want to be honest about something. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did the math on what I'd spent on that family over a decade. The wedding I'd half-funded for Holt, the down payment help, the cruise, the house, and I realized I had spent my entire adult life buying a seat at a table that had never actually been set for me. Selling the house wasn't revenge so much as it was finally agreeing with what they'd told me at the airport. If I wasn't family, then I didn't owe family rates. They landed back in Toronto on a Thursday. I know because my cousin texted me a photo from the airport, everyone looking sunburnt and pleased with themselves, captioned "Missed you, Maren" with a heart, as if 4 words on a screen hadn't ended something. I didn't reply. I went to work. I had a kitchen consult in Leslieville at 10 and a furniture delivery at 1, and I let my phone sit face down on my desk the entire day. The calls started around 6 that evening. 41 missed calls by the time I checked, most from my mother, a few from Holt, one from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Bree's sister, the one who'd taken my seat, apparently under the impression I owed her an apology for the inconvenience of my own family. I didn't call anyone back. I poured a glass of wine and watched the texts pile up instead. A slow-motion car crash I had, for once in my life, absolutely nothing to do with stopping. "Mom, Maren, there are people here saying this isn't our house anymore? Mom, call me right now, this is not funny, Holt. Did you do something to the house? The new owner's lawyer is here, Dad. I don't understand what is happening, can you please explain? That last one got me a little. My father had never texted me anything but holiday greetings in 15 years. I almost called him, almost. Then I remembered him sitting in that departure lounge while I stood at the gate with a useless boarding pass, not once picking up his own phone to ask where I was, and I put mine face down again. I let it sit for 2 full days before I finally called my mother back, mostly because the surgeons who'd bought the house, lovely people, had phoned Priscilla in a polite panic asking if the previous occupants were going to be a problem, since apparently my family had tried to argue with the movers about furniture that belonged to the house, not to them. I had to clear that up before it became a police matter, which frankly it nearly did. "You can't just sell our house," my mother said, voice cracking somewhere between fury and disbelief. "It was never your house, Mom. It was mine. It was always mine. I bought it. I paid the property tax. I paid for the roof you complained about last spring. The deed has always said Larkspur Holdings, and Larkspur Holdings is me. We live there. We've lived there for 3 years, and I appreciate that you enjoyed it. But you also told me in writing that I wasn't family, so I made a business decision about a business asset. That's all this is." She was crying by then, the kind of crying that used to make me cave instantly, that used to send me straight into apology mode even when I hadn't done anything wrong. I let the silence sit instead. "Where are we supposed to go?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I said, and I meant it gently, not cruelly, even though I knew it would land like a slap. "I'm sure Bree's sister has a guest room." The fallout took about 3 weeks to fully settle. Holt tried showing up at my office uninvited, telling my receptionist he was my brother and needed to speak with me, and I had to have him escorted out by building security, which is a sentence I never thought I'd type about my own family. My father, to his credit, called once more, quieter this time, and admitted that he hadn't known I'd paid for the house outright, that he genuinely believed it was some kind of family inheritance situation he didn't need to think too hard about. I told him I believed that. I also told him it didn't change anything, because somebody in that house had decided I wasn't worth a seat at Easter dinner, let alone a deed. My parents ended up renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Scarborough, with the proceeds from selling most of the furniture I'd originally bought them, which felt like its own kind of poetic ending, even though I took no pleasure in picturing my 63-year-old father carrying boxes up 2 flights of stairs. Holt and Bree, last I heard through a cousin who still talks to me, are still in their starter condo in Mississauga. The home equity line he'd been bragging to the movers about apparently never materialized. Once the bank found out his sister-in-law's investment in their finances was a fiction. As for me, I used the proceeds from the house to put a down payment on a commercial unit for my staging business, the kind of expansion I'd been too cautious to make for years, because some part of me had always been quietly saving room in my budget for my family's emergencies. I don't do that anymore. My accountant set up a proper trust this time, with my name on absolutely everything, no ambiguity, no goodwill gestures dressed up as ownership. My mother still texts sometimes, mostly around holidays, careful little messages that never quite apologize but always hint at missing me. I read them. I don't always answer. I think about that text at the gate more than I'd like to admit. Dad wants just family. And I think about how long it took me to understand that family isn't a thing you buy your way into. It's something that's supposed to be there whether you're useful or not. Mine wasn't, and it took selling a house out from under all of them to finally see it clearly. I still get invited to things now and then. I still go, sometimes, mostly for my father's sake. But I don't pay for anyone's flights anymore, and nobody has ever again, not once, told me I'm not family. They learned. It just cost them a house to learn it.